Marcus Washington. You can follow him on Twitter at MTC with Mook. He gives you great content from those game sites each and every night. Marcus, Pete, and Chris back here in D.C. Appreciate a few minutes. Are you going back and forth between the A-10 and the Big East, or did you just go to the Big East yesterday?
Guys, another grind them out win over Richmond. Got back down here to MSG to catch the end of the Seton Hall DePaul game, and then Georgetown last night. Have a similar day playing today. We'll be at Mason at 2 as they face St. Louis, and then I'll come back down probably for Creighton and Villanova, which I think will be an excellent one tonight.
So wait, that's Barclays to Madison Square Garden, right?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, that's a pretty good double dip. I mean, if you love college basketball, which I know both of you guys do, that's a pretty damn good day. Maybe get a Knish in between.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very simplistic trip. It's the easiest train trip, just a 2 train,
right?
Uptown, downtown.
No doubt.
Attaboy.
Marcus, let's start with the Hoyas. Obviously, we've watched. You and I have watched a lot of these games. Even the people locally now, I think even the most ardent Georgetown supporters, someone who's watched this program since 1979 like I have, when they lost that heartbreaker to Iowa, when they could have gone to the Final Four. At some point, leadership over there has to realize this is not moving forward. This is not competitive with the rest of the Big East product. And at what point or how much time do they give Patrick and that staff the opportunity to try and get this right?
Well, I think at this point, the anticipation and all the talk up here has been that his time might be done by Monday, that there is an ending to this. He's had 6 years, and I don't even know how many years coaches are going to get anymore because of the transfer portal. But Patrick got roughly a recruiting cycle and a half to turn this around, and it just hasn't happened. He hasn't been able to keep recruiting classes at Georgetown. The guys that he has brought in out the transfer portal have never truly come together and kind of glued together. If you really do take away the 4 days in New York City where they won the Big East tournament, this has been a bad product. And to your point, where the Big East is going and where some of the teams are going, especially with hires like Sean Miller and those type of things, Georgetown needs to make the change probably as fast as possible, because last night was frustrating, sad, and it's just a relief. It was frustrating because this has been 6 years, and everyone does feel sad for Patrick, but there's almost a sense of relief of, okay, I think everyone's on board now to move on to the next step for the university.
But Marcus, do you think the university is on board with that, knowing what it signifies? It signifies, hey, we're willing and bold enough to make a change and to realize and recognize how bad it's gotten, but we have to do it at the expense of not only Patrick's legacy, but also Big John's legacy.
Yeah, I think we're at that time 2 years ago. No, this is sort of the problem of hiring someone who is so iconic to a university is generally there's not an out game. Mm-hmm. And the losses were so bad after last season that the university, I just feel like the university has its hands tied where they are still trying to figure out how we're going to do it and in what way can we all save face out of it. But I think we're past the point of it not being done. I expect that sometime over the next couple of weeks that we will see some sort of press conference that says that the university is moving on and they'll start a national coaching search for the replacement.
Where is that replacement coming from?
That's a darn good question. There's been a lot of talk of Rick Pitino and being up here in New York. He's getting a lot of love because there's a lot of talk of Pitino at St. John's that Mike Anderson's time is done up here. It can come from various places. If you ask me, if Georgetown wants to go the route of an assistant coach, I've said this time and time again, look down at UVA at Jason Williford. I think he would be absolutely positively great here. if you're looking for an experienced coach and you don't want to go down the Patino road and you're kind of looking for a bridge, I certainly would make a call to Mike Bray. And if you're looking for someone younger that's probably exceeded the expectations at his job and probably needs to get out right now, then you look at Kevin Keats down in North Carolina State, or maybe Jeff Capel up at Pitt. Those guys have head coaches and experience in Power Fives. Both of them are having a great year. I think both of them also realize that the university that they're at, the posse could be after them in a year and a half. So they might be looking for a way to get out. And probably the biggest name that has been mentioned time and time again is Ed Cooley up at Providence. Mm-hmm. My question about that one is, yes, it's attractive to come to Georgetown, but boy, Ed Cooley has it great at Providence. And I don't know what it would take for Georgetown to pry him away from there, but Cooley has a great setup, and he has done a terrific job with that program.
Let me ask you a spicy potato one here. If you're any one of these programs that need a head coach, but specifically say Georgetown and St. John's, right, just because of the legacy of those two schools and basketball programs and whatever, would you even consider a guy like Chris Beard, who left under Texas under very, very difficult and controversial circumstances, but everywhere he's gone has done, by my remembrance, a great job? Like, are you that desperate to go down that road, or is that an absolute no because of what he was accused of and what cost him his job at Texas?
I think that if you're talking about St. John's, I really do believe that they would be the likely of the two to roll that dice. At Georgetown, if you look at the university footprint, let's just take sports out of it. The university footprint, sort of the things that they let everyone know that they stand for, it would be really hard to justify bringing in Chris Beard. Mm-hmm. St. John's, because of the news cycle up here and it's so far away from Texas and things just move so fast here, if he came out and won 24 games and followed that with 27 and got to the second weekend of the NCAA tournament, I really do feel like it would work for that university. I just don't feel like with Georgetown that it works with what the university sort of says it stands for.
Understood.
And no doubt, that league is tough right now. And you mentioned Sean Miller got back in. So, I mean, Chris is going to get back in. I mean, Ole Miss certainly appears to be, very enthusiastic about hiring him right now. We'll see if those two can make a deal. Let's throw some light on George Mason. Look, Marcus, you and I have had these discussions before. There was a time 2 years ago I thought George Mason and George Washington both legitimately should start calling the Colonial or somebody like that and think about moving somewhere else, because they weren't, GW at one point did have some success in the A-10, but it had been long fleeting. George Mason had no success virtually while a member of that conference. It looked like it was very tough doing it, and yet here both Kim English and Chris Caputo I thought had terrific years in that league. Mason's still alive today. Assess their chances against the St. Louis team that, quite frankly, let's face it, like a lot of the Atlantic 10, Marcus, like the Dow Jones, man, up one day, down 300 points the next.
I give Kim English a ton of credit, because when you look at the style he was playing when he first came in, very push and shoot threes and very, very fast, a very fun system. But what we've seen is in the 7-game winning streak, it's sort of possession by possession. We're going to use our big. We're going to grind out. We're going to switch all screens and ensure that we're in help. One of the big plays yesterday against Richmond was a switch where Ron Polite is on Grace, the big man, and he's guarding him in the post, chesting him until the double has a time to come. Those little things that George Mason is doing is the reason why they're winning the games that they're winning. And Kim English has turned around the narrative. And this is not any criticism of Dave Paulson, because when you look at where his kids is transferred to and how well they're doing, there was talent here in Fairfax. But for some reason, Kim English has been able to push it together in an A-10 that, what you said, that's been very, very inconsistent. The 7-game win streak today is definitely a winnable game against St. Louis, but it has to be the same formula. It has to be you're going to control pace, hopefully you hit more threes than you hit yesterday, but it's going to start on the defensive end with being able to deal with Collins and those guys, take care of the boards, and then when you have your opportunities to push, the push. For George Washington, it's even better because I don't think anyone expected Chris Caputo to come in right now in his first year with someone else's roster, go above 500 in the Atlantic 10, again, played this incredible style. They had a couple guys, James Bishop and Brendan Adams, that got conference awards this year. And there's some excitement building up there in Foggy Bottom for the Caputo hire. And now it goes to this. Who do you bring in behind those guys to keep up the momentum? And it would be nice to see that for the next 3 to 5 years that George Mason and George Washington can be in that top 6, top 7 in the Atlantic 10 and have a chance to go to the NCAA tournament by winning the conference tournament.
You know what he needs? He needs my guy Brendan Strawn, who played with my son Ryan at Hood, to deliver another Eric Reynolds like he delivered Eric Reynolds to St. Joe's. That's what they need right now at George Washington behind these guys, because Mr. Reynolds put on a show last night for St. Joe's to help them advance as well. So that's what they need. And I think Brendan's going to be filtering some takeover people over there pretty good.
Well, and what is and just while we're at it, what is Kim English going to do with Adoro leaving probably, right? Is he a senior this year? I know he's looking at leaving the program last year, so I would imagine he's going to. This is it, right, for him, if I'm not remembering right. So, like, that's how do you replace these guys and sustain the momentum that you're building this year?
And this is where the transfer portal becomes very, very important because you're not going to bring in a freshman big. And so, what big can you get out of the transfer portal, which makes this run so important? Because now you can shop. This is what we did with Josh and how we got him the big NIL deal, how he's raised whatever professional stock that he has by playing in this offense. And you might be better at a George Mason than maybe a mid-level to low-level Power 5 as far as improving your footprint. But that is the next challenge for Kim English is these pieces that have been here, how do you get them in? And Ronald Polite's been great, but one of the things George Mason has struggled with is the point guard position. Prior to this year, Kim is going to have to find a way to bring in that next point guard, if not two, to help and assist with Devin Dinkins when he takes over that position. But the challenge is still there. But I think we all agree that where George Mason is going is certainly looking
a bit of a tougher matchup. Minnesota pulls the upset last night because Nebraska just plays brain-dead basketball the last 3.5 minutes of that game, and Minnesota finds a way to get the victory. Terps crushed them both times. I think Maryland catches a huge break in advance of a game with Indiana by getting Minnesota here tonight.
Yeah, and again, another great job by first-year coach and Kevin Willard. I think you're going to see what you've seen this year is what Maryland's going to be going forward, which is, hey, as long as we play as hard as we can on defense, I give you grace and leniency on offense, and it makes for a very attractive program. They will take care of Minnesota. There's no doubt about it, and certainly will have a puncher's chance against Indiana. Maryland's problem has been away from home, especially in conference. They've been dreadful. So it's just getting that together. But again, same thing as I said about Chris Caputo. What Kevin Willard has done in year one has exceeded expectations. But unlike those two schools, boy, he has a recruiting class coming in next season. And that recruiting momentum with Tony Skinn and David Cox, going out there and beating the recruiting trail makes Maryland fans feel like no matter how this season ends, they're definitely on a road, maybe not to the Gary Williams years, but darn close to it.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Marcus, appreciate you making some time for us and being flexible as well. And
Thanks,
enjoy
Marcus.
those brief train rides between the Garden and Barclays today. I got to be honest with you. I'm super jealous, man. Super jealous. No doubt, pal.
Great. Thanks a lot, guys.
You got it.
Thanks,
Appreciate you, man. Marcus Washington is always joining us, one of our great college basketball voices here on the show. Imagine that. Barclays to MSG for games today. That'd be like going from maybe the Meadowlands to Philadelphia to watch like Giants at 4 or Giants at 1 and then Eagles at 7. Because you'd have to have a little bit of time. But man, that's a basketball lover's dream. What he's doing today, covering those two tournaments.